There comes a moment in almost every person's life that nobody celebrates. It is not the day you win. It is not the day you become successful. It is not the day people finally believe in you. It is the day you quietly sit alone, looking at the life you've created, and you whisper to yourself, this can't be it. Not because your life is over, not because you've failed forever, but because something inside you finally wakes up. Let me tell you something. That moment is not your breaking point. That is your beginning. Some people call it a crisis. I call it an invitation. An invitation to restart. An invitation to rebuild. An invitation to refocus. Think about this for a moment. Nature understands this principle better than we do. Every winter, the trees appear empty. Their leaves disappear. Their beauty seems gone. Someone walking by who doesn't understand seasons might think the tree is dying. But the tree isn't dying. It's preparing. It's conserving. It's making room for another beginning. Human beings panic during their winters because we've convinced ourselves that every season should look like spring. But growth has never worked that way. Maybe you're listening today because you've lost something. Maybe you lost money. Maybe you lost confidence. Maybe someone walked out of your life. Maybe you made decisions you wish you could erase. Or maybe nothing dramatic happened. Maybe you simply woke up one morning realizing you've been surviving instead of living. Here's what most people don't understand. Your greatest enemy is rarely failure. Your greatest enemy is familiarity. It's getting comfortable with a life that no longer represents who you could become. Comfort has a strange way of stealing dreams without making any noise. One day becomes another. Monday becomes Friday. January becomes December. 5 years disappear. You weren't making terrible decisions. You just stopped making intentional ones. And that's dangerous. I learned something years ago from watching an old craftsman. He restored broken furniture. People would bring him tables with cracked legs, chairs that had collapsed, cabinets damaged by time. One afternoon, I asked him something. I said, how do you know if something is worth restoring? He smiled without looking up. He said, I never look at what it is today. I look at what it was built to become. That sentence stayed with me because people don't need restoration due to their damage. They need restoration because they have forgotten their design. Maybe life has scratched you. Maybe disappointment has cracked your confidence. Maybe rejection has chipped away at your courage. But damage does not erase design. Think about that. A scratched diamond is still a diamond. A bent key can still open a door. A storm doesn't change the value of the mountain. Your circumstances are not your identity. Yet every day people introduce themselves by their wounds. I'm the one who failed. I'm the one who got divorced. I'm the one who lost everything. I'm the one who wasn't chosen. No, those are experiences. They are not identities. Your identity should never be borrowed from your worst season because seasons change. Always. Let me tell you about a young man I once met. He wasn't famous. Nobody had ever heard his name. He worked the same job for nearly 12 years. Every morning, the alarm rang at the same time, the same road, the same desk, the same conversations, the same complaints. The same dreams postponed until someday. One evening, his little daughter asked him a simple question. Dad, are grown-ups supposed to look tired all the time? Children ask dangerous questions because they don't know how to protect our excuses. He laughed at first, but later that night, those words echoed through his mind. He looked into the bathroom mirror, not for 5 seconds, not while brushing his teeth, really looked, and he didn't recognize the man staring back. His face wasn't old, his spirit was. He hadn't lost his ability. He had lost his direction. There's a difference. Many people think they're exhausted. Sometimes they're simply disconnected from purpose. Purpose energizes. Confusion drains. That's why restarting begins with honesty. Not motivation, honesty. You have to become brave enough to ask yourself difficult questions. Where am I pretending? Where am I settling? What habits have quietly become my prison? What conversations do I keep having that never move my life forward? Who am I trying to impress? Why am I postponing the very life I say I want? These questions don't punish you. They free you. Because awareness always comes before transformation. Here's what most people don't understand. People love talking about opportunities. Very few people talk about preparation. Opportunity without preparation creates frustration. Preparation without opportunity creates patience. And patience eventually meets opportunity. The farmer doesn't scream at the field because nothing grew overnight. He understands invisible work. He trusts the process beneath the surface. Yet people plant one day of discipline and expect a harvest by Friday. Life doesn't reward intensity nearly as much as it rewards consistency. Anyone can become inspired. Few people become dependable. Dependable to their dreams. Dependable to their word. Dependable to the future version of themselves. Imagine if every promise you made to yourself became as important as the promises you make to everyone else. Think about how many times you've shown up for people while disappearing from yourself. You said you'd start reading tomorrow. You said you'd exercise next week. You said you'd save money next month. You said you'd launch the business next year. Years later, the calendar changed. You didn't. Time never stopped moving. Only your decision did. Let me tell you something. The cost of delay is almost invisible. That's why it's so dangerous. Nobody wakes up after one lazy morning and ruins their future. Nobody destroys their confidence because they skipped one workout. Nobody loses their dream because of one distracted afternoon. It's the accumulation tiny choices, repeated daily, like drops of water. One drop changes nothing. Enough drops reshape stone. The same principle works for your life. Small disciplines become extraordinary lives. Small neglect becomes extraordinary regret. Regret is rarely born in dramatic moments. It grows quietly, silently, patiently. One ignored opportunity at a time. One abandoned promise at a time. One unnecessary distraction at a time. Until one day you meet the person you could have become. Not literally, emotionally. You see someone living the courage you postponed, building the business you kept talking about, writing the book you kept planning, learning the skills you kept delaying, and suddenly you realize your competition was never another person. It was your own hesitation. Think about this for a moment. Imagine carrying a backpack. Every time you avoid responsibility, another stone goes inside. Every excuse, another stone. Every unfinished commitment, another stone. Every complaint without action, another stone. At first, it's easy to carry. Weeks pass, months pass, years pass. Eventually you begin telling people, life feels heavy. Of course it does. You've been collecting unnecessary weight. The beautiful part is that responsibility works both ways. Every disciplined action removes a stone. Every courageous conversation removes another. Every early morning, every healthy decision, every hour spent learning, every promise kept, little by little, the backpack becomes lighter. Not because life became easier, because you became stronger. Strength is rarely created in comfort. Comfort specializes in maintenance. Growth specializes in challenge. That's why rebuilding your life often feels uncomfortable. You're asking old habits to leave. You're asking old beliefs to move aside. You're asking your identity to expand. Expansion always creates tension. Consider a bridge being built. Before it carries thousands of people, it carries tremendous pressure. Pressure isn't always proof something is breaking. Sometimes it's proof something important is being built. I met an elderly gentleman once who had lived through failures most people would never recover from. Businesses collapsed. Friendships ended. Health challenges appeared. Yet every time I saw him, he carried a calm confidence. I finally asked him his secret. He laughed softly. He said, I stopped asking why life was happening to me. I started asking what life was trying to teach me. What a powerful shift. Victims ask, why me? Students ask, what now? One question steals power. The other creates it. Here's what most people don't understand. Life keeps repeating lessons until we finally learn them. Different city, same habit, different relationship, same insecurity, different job. Same procrastination, different year, same excuses. The scenery changes, the patterns remain. Unless you change, retarding is not moving somewhere else. Retarding is becoming someone else. That's the difference. You don't need a different calendar. You need different standards. Standards quietly shape destiny, not wishes, not goals written once in January. Standards. What do you refuse to tolerate from yourself anymore? Late nights with no purpose, constant negativity, living below your potential, breaking promises to yourself, waiting for permission. The moment your standards rise, your life begins reorganizing itself. Some people leave, some opportunities arrive, some habits disappear, some possibilities finally become visible. Because you no longer fit the life you used to accept. Let me tell you about a sculptor. People admired his beautiful statues. Someone asked him, how do you create something so magnificent from a giant block of stone? He smiled. I don't create it. I remove everything that doesn't belong. That's rebuilding. You're not adding a new identity. You're removing what was never truly you, the fear, the doubt borrowed from other people, the limiting beliefs inherited from childhood, the excuses repeated so often they started sounding like facts. Piece by piece, you chip away everything unnecessary until the person you were always capable of becoming begins to appear. Think about that for a moment. Maybe your next level isn't waiting for you to gain something. Maybe it's waiting for you to release something. Release the comparison. Release the bitterness. Release the endless need for approval. Release the belief that your past has more authority than your future. Because every day you carry yesterday's chains, today loses its freedom. And freedom is essential for focus. Now let's talk about focus. Because rebuilding without focus is like trying to fill a bucket with holes. You work hard. You stay busy. You feel exhausted. Yet nothing significant changes. Why? Because motion is not always progress. Imagine sunlight spread across an entire field. It warms, concentrated through a single lens. It can ignite fire, the same energy, different focus. Your mind works exactly the same way. Scattered attention creates average results. Directed attention creates transformation. And the world has become incredibly skilled at stealing your attention. Every notification, every unnecessary argument, every comparison, every endless scroll, every distraction whispers the same message. Look over here. Meanwhile, your future quietly waits for the one thing only you can do. Think about this for a moment. Imagine an archer standing with a bow in his hands. The target is 50 yards away. His posture is perfect. His equipment is excellent. His desire to hit the center is genuine. But every 2 seconds, someone taps him on the shoulder and points toward another target. Try this one. No, this one looks easier. That one pays more. This one is trending. Everyone else is shooting over there. How many arrows do you think ever reach the center? Very few. Not because the archer lacked talent, because he lacked uninterrupted attention. That is the battle of modern life. Your greatest resource is not your money. It is not your education. It is not even your time. It is your attention. Where your attention goes, your life eventually follows. Here's what most people don't understand. The quality of your future depends on what repeatedly occupies your mind today. Every day your brain is building something, a stronger habit, a stronger fear, a stronger identity, a stronger excuse, or a stronger purpose. You are always becoming. The only question is, becoming what? I remember meeting a woman who had decided to change her life after nearly 20 years of believing she couldn't. She wasn't famous. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't searching for applause. She simply grew tired of introducing herself as someone she no longer wanted to be. She told me something I'll never forget. She said, "For years I kept asking how to change my life. One morning I realized I had been asking the wrong question. I asked, 'What question did you start asking?' She smiled. 'Who must I become for the life I want to make sense?' That changes everything. Because success isn't only about achieving something. It's about becoming someone capable of sustaining it. People often pray for bigger opportunities while refusing to become bigger people. Life has a fascinating way of protecting us from responsibilities we're not yet prepared to carry. Imagine giving the keys of a race car to someone who has never learned to drive. The problem isn't the car. The problem is the character behind the wheel. Character determines capacity. Capacity determines influence. Influence determines legacy. And character is built in moments nobody applauds. It is built when nobody is watching, when the alarm rings, before sunrise, when you're tired, when you're disappointed, when nobody would blame you for quitting. Those are the moments that quietly introduce you to yourself. Let me tell you something. Pressure never creates character. Pressure reveals it. Think about squeezing an orange. No matter how hard you squeeze, apple juice never comes out. Whatever is inside eventually appears. The same is true for people. Under pressure, fear appears, or courage, excuses appear, or responsibility, bitterness appears, or gratitude. Pressure simply introduces the world to what has been growing inside you all along. That's why rebuilding always starts internally. Too many people spend years redesigning their circumstances while ignoring their mindset. New job, same thinking. New house, same fears. New relationship, same emotional habits. Different environment. Identical identity. Nothing truly changes. Here's what most people don't understand. You cannot consistently outperform the picture you carry of yourself. If deep inside you believe you're unworthy, every achievement will feel temporary. If deep inside you believe success belongs to someone else, you'll unconsciously sabotage your own progress. That's why self-respect matters so much. Not arrogance. Not ego, self-respect, knowing your value without needing constant validation. Years ago, I watched a gardener preparing a piece of land. It looked strange. Instead of planting flowers immediately, he spent weeks removing weeds, pulling rocks, improving the soil. People passing by wondered why nothing beautiful had appeared yet. But the gardener wasn't impatient. He understood a lesson many people forget. Healthy roots matter more than visible flowers. Our culture celebrates flowers, titles, money, recognition, awards, followers, applause. But life is sustained by roots. Your values are roots. Your habits are roots. Your integrity is a root. Your discipline is a root. Your patience is a root. Nobody applauds roots. Yet without them, nothing beautiful survives. Think about that. The tallest tree in the forest owes its strength to the part nobody ever sees. Maybe you've been frustrated because your roots have been growing while you've been expecting flowers. Invisible growth often feels like no growth at all, but don't confuse silence with stagnation. Seeds grow in darkness before they ever reach the light. The next chapter of your life may already be developing beneath the surface. You simply haven't seen it yet. That doesn't mean it isn't happening. I learned another lesson from an old clockmaker. His workshop was filled with clocks of every size. Some were ancient, some were brand new. I noticed something interesting. Every clock depended on hundreds of tiny moving parts. One broken gear could stop the entire system. He looked at me and said, "People admire the hands because they move. I spend my time protecting the gears because they matter." How much of your life is spent protecting appearances instead of protecting your gears? Your sleep, your thinking, your physical health, your emotional health, your daily routines, your relationships. Those are your gears. People see your performance. Very few people see the system producing it. Winning is often the visible result of an invisible lifestyle. And that's why shortcuts rarely create lasting success. A shortcut may help you arrive faster. It cannot help you stay longer. Think about climbing a mountain. One person uses patience, learns every step, builds endurance. Another searches for hidden shortcuts. Maybe the shortcut saves time. Maybe it doesn't. But when storms arrive, who do you think survives? The one who built strength during the climb, or the one who simply searched for easier paths? Life rewards preparation more than convenience. Convenience feels good today. Preparation serves you tomorrow. And tomorrow is always built long before it arrives. Let me ask you something. If your future self could walk into this room right now, not 10 years older, but 10 years wiser, what would that person thank you for? Would they thank you for another evening spent distracted? Would they thank you for another year of hesitation? Or would they smile because this was the season you finally became serious about your own potential? Here's what most people don't understand. The future is not created all at once. It is negotiated daily. Every decision casts a vote. Every habit casts another vote. Every conversation casts another vote. Every morning, every evening, every choice quietly says, this is the person I am becoming. Eventually, those votes become an identity. And identities are powerful because people naturally act in agreement with who they believe they are. That's why changing your life isn't merely about changing behavior. It's about changing belief. A person who believes, I'm trying to become disciplined, behaves differently from someone who believes, I am a disciplined person who occasionally struggles. One identity is uncertain. The other has direction. Direct matters more than speed. I've seen people moving quickly toward destinations they never intended to reach, bussy, stressed, productive, and completely lost. Activity is a terrible substitute for clarity. Before asking how fast you're moving, ask where you're headed. Imagine boarding a train, traveling at incredible speed, comfortable seats, friendly passengers, smooth ride. Everything feels impressive. Then someone quietly informs you, it's going the wrong direction. Suddenly speed becomes irrelevant. Many lives are filled with impressive speed and very little intention. Restarting requires the humility to admit, I've been moving, but not necessarily moving toward what matters. That admission isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because the map only becomes useful after you acknowledge where you actually are. And this brings me to another lesson that changed the way I think about progress. I once met a marathon runner who had completed races that seemed almost impossible. People constantly asked him for the perfect training program. They wanted the secret workout, the perfect diet, the magic formula. He would always smile and answer with something unexpected. The hardest part isn't learning how to run. The hardest part is learning how not to stop when your mind begins negotiating with your comfort. That sentence stayed with me because every meaningful goal eventually introduces you to a conversation inside your own mind, not a conversation with critics, not a conversation with competitors. A conversation with yourself. Your mind begins whispering, you've done enough. You deserve a break. You can start again next week. No one will notice. It doesn't really matter. Those whispers rarely sound dangerous. They sound reasonable. And that's exactly why they become so powerful. Comfort almost never announces itself as your enemy. It disguises itself as permission. It speaks gently, tenderly, convincingly, until one ordinary decision becomes another. And before you realize it, the life you promised yourself has slowly been replaced by the life you merely accepted. Now imagine another voice, not louder, just wiser. It doesn't argue with your fear. It simply asks one question: what kind of person do you want to be when this moment is over? That question changes everything, because suddenly the decision is no longer about today's discomfort. It's about the story you're writing with your actions. Every difficult moment gives you a pen. Every response writes another sentence. Every disciplined choice writes another paragraph. And long before the world ever reads your story, your character has already begun to shape the next page, because the person you become in private inevitably determines what becomes possible in public. Let me tell you about a young apprentice who spent years believing he would never be exceptional. He worked in a small workshop where no cameras ever appeared, no applause ever echoed through the room, and no awards decorated the walls. Every morning he swept the floor before anyone else arrived. He sharpened tools, organized materials, cleaned the benches. By the time the real work began, he had already been working for an hour. One afternoon, he finally gathered enough courage to ask his mentor a question that had been living inside him for years. When do I get to do the important work? The old mentor didn't answer immediately. Instead, he handed him a small block of wood. Make this perfectly square. The young man looked confused. That's all? The mentor nodded. Hours later, he returned. The mentor measured it. It was close, but not perfect. Again. The next day, again. The next week, again. Months passed. The apprentice became frustrated. He wanted bigger opportunity, greater responsibility, more exciting challenges. Finally, he said, "You're wasting my potential." The mentor smiled. "No, I'm protecting it, because